What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I am Jabril, and I am with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well.
And for you guys who have never seen this show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, but we like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what you been playing?
So I've been playing very light things. Haven't been diving into too much of anything. Obviously, just the launch of the new systems are right around the corner at the time of recording. This is the Sunday before both systems launch, so I've been trying to, make sure I've, balanced my time correctly. So I've just playing actually a lot of little things on Switch. Right before bed is usually my only time. I usually get like 20 minutes, so a little bit more of Animal Crossing still. I go in, fix up my town. Now that the Halloween thing is over, I probably won't be jumping in too much. Probably when they do the holiday season, I'll jump back in there. So kind of just finished off, my little Halloween decorations and stuff like that. But besides that, mainly I've just been playing. So No More Heroes on the Switch, the first one that was ported a few weeks ago. Game's still good. Very shorter than I remember. I think I'm like plowing through it pretty quickly. Again, I only really do a stage every other night or so. And then besides that, just casually playing that Paper Mario that I told you guys I was restarted a while ago, and I'm kind of jiving with it. I'm in that Red Mountain now, which I think is still early on. It's the second area, I think. So the Red Mountain with the blue ribbon that I have to take care of and stuff. But
yes,
the mechanics are starting to really work well. Now I'm kind of just enjoying it. Where the first time I was playing through, I don't know why I was just so critical of it. But I'm having fun. It's a nice little game, especially just kind of super cleansing everything before we jump into some of these big titles. So that's all I've been playing. I've been again keeping it very casual and not even playing too much. Been watching obviously a lot of unboxing videos and stuff that all these things are out. That's all I've been up to. What have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so I haven't been playing a ton. The main thing that I've actually been playing is something that I play all the time, but I don't mention it on the show because, again, it's been a continuous thing for 7 years now. It's just GTA 5. I play it pretty close to weekly. At its lowest point, I was playing it like a couple times a month. But generally speaking, at least like twice a week, I'm usually just, going in there, screwing around, doing a couple jobs, buying a car, buying an outfit. I always mess around in that job. That game. I've been doing that for years. So I've been playing that, and I finally got somebody who was going to help me with my heists. So I'm kind of catching up on that and making a lot of money that way. I've also trying to be, I guess, more social and play with my girlfriend. It's been kind of like Among Us and like Phasmophobia, I guess, is the game everybody's talking about now with the ghost hunting.
I see it. I see a lot of people posting. I haven't watched any videos of it yet. Yeah,
so I've been playing a bit of that with her and a lot of other friends, and same thing with Among Us. And you guys know all about Among Us. Phasmophobia, it's like a typical kind of like clunky PC horror game, but they have some really cool mechanics in terms of the way you can like lure out ghosts and capture different pieces of evidence and the different areas, and like you can like see the temperature change. You could have like a spirit box and you could hear it kind of like talk back to you. You can capture image of like ghost orbs. Like there's a lot of cool stuff that I haven't seen really any other games get quite into this level of depth, because I feel like in some ways it kind of like takes that Slender kind of vibe, Amnesia vibe, where you're kind of walking around an area looking for certain things, but this one, it's a little bit more nuanced, it's a little bit more complex to that, and it varies a lot more from kind of run to run. So it's a pretty cool game. It's not something that I would like super endorse as like the thing that I'm loving to play right now, but it's kind of a cool thing to get a little team of people to play with and kind of mess around with. And again, it's probably one of the hotter games in the industry right now. Everybody's talking about, because at one point, it was like was it Fall Guys, and then Among Us came, and then Hades came, and now it's like Phasmophobia. Like there's always like that kind of like hot game that everybody's talking about, and so I had to kind of dip my feet into it.
Yeah, I'm interested in checking out again. Some of the YouTubers I follow, I've seen they've posted it, but I just haven't checked it out. And lightly every once in a while, play Among Us too, just because I do enjoy it. I finally got it on PC, so I'm not so restricted.
Way easier to play on there.
Oh yeah, it's just it's not that hard to play it on mobile. It's just a little bit easier, especially with if you're trying to do the group chat and the tasks and stuff like that. So I'm really feeling Among Us. I like it.
Yeah, me too. The only kind of annoying thing is like if you are playing with people but not a lot of people, like if there's only like 2 or 3 of you, getting a full lobby is a nightmare.
Yeah, especially when so we did the first night I played Among Us. It was like 4 of us and then we try to fill up, obviously, because you're going to figure out who's the killer very quickly if you're playing with 4 people.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you fill it with randoms, we're on a chat, and then other people, they're not in the chat, and then we end up just becoming kind of a mess.
Yeah, so a lot of fun, though, but I definitely get the hype of it. So I guess we could jump into the first story, and it's kind of a continuation of what we did last week at the end of the show, which is getting our hands on the DualSense controller. At the time, I didn't have the controller. You did. You were very positive about it. And right after that show, that day, I did get the controller. And I've messed with it in various different ways, kind of just, feeling it on hand, testing it on different systems. I played a little bit on PC to just kind of feel how it moved around about it. So I do got it here with me this time, like you last week.
Yep.
So yeah, very, very positive about this controller. I like it quite a bit. I do like the pronounced start and what is it, share or create? I forget which button it is.
No, I think it's create.
I do like that. I like that that main light bar is gone. The triggers are a lot better and a lot clickier. I like that. I like the slight resistance in the thumbsticks a little bit more. So that feels really good. And yeah, general bulkier form factor of this controller to me certainly lessens the gap that I had between the DualShock 4 and the Xbox One's controller, where I just felt like the Xbox One's controller for me was just way more comfortable. And this one certainly lessens the gap. And so going from this to the Switch Pro controller to the Xbox Series X controller is going to make a lot of parity between them. That's going to make things a lot more comfortable for me. The offset joysticks thing has never really bothered me at all, so that's why PlayStation controllers have never been quite an issue for me. But yeah, I'm very high on it. I do think it's kind of strange where it works on a PS3 right now, but it doesn't work on a PS4. Did you know that?
Yes, I was because after the show I wrapped up, I was trying to hook it up to my PS4. Was not working even as a regular Bluetooth device, and it wasn't working. I was curious. Then I did check. I do have my PS3 hooked up for other reasons, for no reason right now. But yeah, it worked. It did. But it does just read it as a Bluetooth device, the same way it reads DualShock 4 as just a general Bluetooth device, as a general. Those $15, well, when I worked at GameStop, those $15 cheap controls, they just register as Bluetooth devices. So that's all I worked with. I wish it worked on PS4. Apparently that's coming in a software update later, but...
Yeah, it's something that looks like it just straight hasn't been enabled so much as they're resisting the ability for it to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm really, really positive about it. I'm not the biggest fan of white controllers because I get super nervous to touch it. Especially coming off of dinner, coming off of snacking or whatever. I'm I don't want to get any smudges and yellow this thing over time. But my Xbox controller has held kind of its whiteness all this time, so I don't have any concerns there. And you were certainly right about the little symbols not being as pronounced as everybody thought they were. Yeah. You could barely see those things.
Yeah, I can only imagine when you first... I mean, it's probably one of the first things you did is open it, turn it around.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was like,
you
what
literally
the hell?
have to have the control, on your nose to really see it. It's
I, super zoomed in, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, you guys just have really good cameras. They had me out here thinking it was the most pronounced thing in the world. It's not gritty at all,
everyone. Though. Yeah, they fooled everyone. It's nice. It's more like a little Easter egg than anything.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's the little Master Chief symbol in the Xbox and all that.
The Xbox, yeah. That's how I always looked at it.
Yeah, so really positive about the controller. Again, ultimately, I'm not going to have a ton to say until I feel those adaptive triggers. And I know some people are messing around with the controller, with Spotify and stuff like that. I wasn't able to get that working, but I know people are doing that, where you can play music through the controller and
through the speaker.
The haptics react to the bass. Wasn't able to do that, but hey, guys, if I'm able to get that working, I'll report back to you, I guess. But yeah, until I'm able to feel those adaptive triggers in game, we won't really get the full DualSense package, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel the same way where people I boxed mine back up and people are like, you're not messing with it. I'm like, I know there's a few programs out there but they're from shady websites that will just show off the trigger. I was more okay watching someone mess with it. I do want it to work. I can't wait to have the system in hand because I do see there's certain things that the triggers actually can resist back and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, those are things that I'm excited to try in game. Obviously all the reviews are praising it for that kind of stuff too, but if we're this excited just to have it, not even to a system, I just can't. Once the system's here, it'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I need that in Miles. That's the place I'm trying to look for it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Maybe by next time we're recording.
Hope so. Fingers crossed.
That's it. We'll see. All right. Now going into the next story, or the next official story, something that we've been talking about, which feels like we've been talking about it forever. The Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster has been announced, and also some other new Mass Effect news. So, EA and BioWare has officially confirmed the Mass Effect Trilogy re-release called Mass Effect Legendary Edition for consoles and PC. This announcement was made as part of the N7 Day, November 7th, also all the merchandise that is for Mass Effect. And it comes after months of reports and rumors and leaks about the collection. The collection bundles together Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3, as well as most of the story DLCs. And then small caveat that they did at the end, BioWare is now working on the next chapter of Mass Effect Universe, which is featuring and being created by a veteran team, not the full team, but a veteran team from the company and from the previous Mass Effects. So, Jabral, I know you have just replayed these not too long ago, but with something we kind of been talking about for a while now. The Mass Effect trilogy is finally being kind of brought back in its in a remastered form and stuff like that. How were your reactions with this? Because I know this was kind of just something we all were waiting to. After so many leaks, we knew this was coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm super excited about this, but this is also like one of those things where they call them like the industry's worst kept secret. Like, we all knew this was coming eventually. It was a matter of like, when are they going to hold for next gen? Is this going to be like something they put a lot of money into? Is this going to be a remake, a remaster? We didn't know. But yeah, the remaster, it's perfect. I'm curious to see if they've rectified some of their anxieties they had with Mass Effect 1. I know they expressed some kind of concerns about the fact that there's this kind of, I guess, jump in quality between 2 and 3, and 1 might not age the best in retrospect. As someone who's recently played the entire trilogy, I think it plays fine enough, especially for a remaster. Like, I don't think it's this drastically unplayable thing. To me, it's definitely like that kind of like PS2 generation is where things start getting really wonky in the controllers, where maybe you have to like completely rebuild it. As far as like 360 games and forward, this game, controls fine enough. It's, again, the least polished of the three. But yeah, I'm just super excited to be able to jump in there. And now, again, since I played it relatively recent, allow myself to make some different choices, romance different characters. I kind of locked myself into like a Liara romance, the whole trilogy that I did when I played. So I'd like to try some other things. Miranda, I'm coming for you. Don't worry about that. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then the second part of the story about the whole like veteran team thing definitely seems kind of a reaction to a lot of the Andromeda controversy, where everybody's like, oh my god, they put a B team to work on Mass Effect. And it was like a lot of newer people, and that, I guess what you could make the assumption is why there was so many technical difficulties with that game and stuff like that. And a lot of the spirit of Mass Effect wasn't really captured and translated well into Andromeda. So this seems like a reaction to that. Be like, hey, we have people who have been at BioWare for some time who know what Mass Effect is. They're going to be working on the next game. And I guess at this point we can only ask, is this going to be in spirit Mass Effect 4? Because I know, and not getting into spoilers, there's a lot of things with 3 that kind of lock you into certain choices. But is this going to be a Mass Effect 4, or is this going to be Andromeda 2 that is more polished, or is this going to be another attempt at an Andromeda-like thing, which is a reboot in a different universe, but in Mass Effect? I don't know what this is going to be in. You can only guess at this point. But what were your thoughts about this?
So yeah, it was exciting to finally see this truly fully come to fruition. I always knew it was going to be I'm like, all right, it's cool, it'll come to PC. I was wondering how they were going to handle the whole we're cross-gen thing right now. So obviously it's coming out for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One with free upgrade, from at least my understanding, free upgrade and whatever backwards compatibility with the newer system. So I'm like, that's cool. A lot of leaks early on also announced it for Switch, and they did not talk about Switch. So kind of curious if that's a later on thing or one of those Nintendo partner directs they do on random mornings. But it's exciting to see this again. I haven't replayed the whole trilogy that long ago. During like the peak of quarantine, I did replay the first one on PC, and the game's aged. But I mean, on PC, and I didn't mod it. I just kind of played the game as is, and I'm like, it was fine. I had no problem playing it. Yeah, some of the textures are a little muddy and stuff like that, and we don't know to the effect of how much. Because I know they've talked about leaving the games in the original form, fixing obviously just frame rates and stuff like that. I wonder if they're going to go and clean up some textures and stuff like that, so I'm sure it'll look a little bit better. Like you said, I don't see the game's not unplayable. I don't see why anyone would be like, oh man, they left it as is. I'm like, yeah, I kind of want it that way, because that's I just replayed it, so
They were acting like I had tank controls. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. The other, obviously, this was a Bethesda move where they're like, we're working on a new Mass Effect with some of the original team, veteran team. Sorry, not the original team, the veteran team. And then they did the super Bethesda move where like, here's a picture of a spaceship, which I don't know, it looked like something out of The Mandalorian. I don't know what you guys want me to. I was like, okay. I mean, no title, no name, no estimated dates, and I'm like, this is definitely a reactionary kind of move. Mass Effect has been, the butt of a joke because of what Andromeda was for so long. On top of that, BioWare's had a lot of problems with Anthem and all that kind of stuff. So this is obviously trying to get people into good grace. This year, 2020 is such a weird year. It'd be even more awkward if they would have just skipped N7 Day, because they always have something for this day, if it's new merchandise or some sort of event, obviously. So I'm glad that they chose this day for it. But it's kind of exciting, but at the same time, when's this going to launch? What else is going to be around? I'm not really... it's asking a lot to jump into it, to replay this trilogy. Each game is, very long. It's wonder when it's gonna land. If it lands during a nice dry time before like the fall, because I feel like fall 2021 is gonna be filled with games. Is it gonna hit that nice kind of weak spot? We don't know what next year looks like, so it's exciting times for Mass Effect fans. Obviously, I think the company's kind of trying to scale back and try to bring Mass Effect back to its former glory. Hopefully, anyway.
Yeah, the best case scenario, they kind of crash it where they do this collection. The collection gets really, really popular, and then they use that good, again, as you mentioned, good grace to kind of segue into the new entry that captures that original spirit, because it's going to be fresh on your mind. And I think that's going to be the best. If they can pull off a solid collection and then they launch a new Mass Effect game that is at worst fine, but, ideally really, really great, that can repair a lot of the damage I felt like Andromeda did to Mass Effect.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think it's kind of what they're obviously trying to do, which is also why this trilogy wasn't like released way prior to Andromeda, because you would have seen like, this is what the people really love, and then here's this new game that you guys aren't gonna like. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, it was one game and a poorly received ending that kind of threw off Mass Effect's trajectory. But it's not like we got like 10 continuous years of trash and then now they're trying to fix it. Like, I think they can undo the damage just as fast as they did the damage, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For the most part, you guys were, Mass Effect's really a really great series.
Absolutely. So I guess we could jump into the next story, and this was a bit of a controversial one happening this week, and it's basically about PT being blocked from working on next gen. So as reported by Polygon, the now iconic horror game teaser for Silent Hills, and this is Kojima's game, was seemingly playable on PS5 using a file transfer in October. However, after an update, the game can no longer be played on the new console, something IGN Japan has confirmed. Polygon reports that when contacted for comment, Sony said that the change was a publisher decision, meaning that Konami had specifically blocked the game from being played on new hardware. Now, though this is very disappointing from a player standpoint, again, phenomenal horror. I guess an excerpt, if you will, or a demo, because it's not even a full game or anything like that. But and from an archivist standpoint, this is unfortunate because, again, they've locked it to old hardware, which just means archiving and protecting these files becomes ever so slightly harder when you can't, play it on new hardware and move things over and stuff like that. But it doesn't surprise me because Konami, was not fond of the idea of people playing it on current gen hardware, let alone next gen hardware. So, and again, Konami's going Konami. Like, I mean, we don't go to Konami expecting player friendly decisions ever. So this doesn't surprise me at all. It's disappointing, but again, I'm not surprised. I don't understand necessarily. Like, listen, if people can bring it over and play it, like, I don't know what harm that causes, but obviously they don't want nothing to do with this game. They don't want any attachment to it. They want it dead. They want it forgotten, and they're just obviously taking steps to enforce that.
Yeah, it was such an interesting thing. Like, I was more curious in the story than I played PT. I do have it on my old hard drive for my PlayStation 4, so if I really wanted to, I could run circles into getting it. But I'm more interested in this kind of aspect where people are still demanding this demo.
Oh yeah,
you know,
people love
PT
it.
stood for playable teaser or whatever Kojima said at the time, and I get it. I don't get the going out. I understood them taking it off the marketplace because they're like, listen, this game's canceled. It's not gonna happen anymore. Everyone's moved on. We're not gonna keep this demo up for no reason. I think they should have just left it up. Why not? But to go out of your way to make sure that it doesn't work on next gen hardware, again, I haven't seen any. Yeah, I've never seen it actually physically run on a PS5. I know IGN Japan says they had it running and now it doesn't run. We have no visible proof of that. I don't see why they would lie. I just think of all the great things coming from next gen. We're still stuck on a demo of a game that's never seen the light of day. I would like to get hopeful and be like, well, this is more of a separation thing. There's this long rumor now that a new Silent Hill game is coming. They may want to maybe downplay PT, really separate themselves, nothing to do with, like you said, and kind of focus on the new Silent Hills or whatever they're going to make. I don't believe it one way or the other, but it's just a weird thing to do. I think also people just... I know it sucks, but it's time to let PT go. I don't know. What are you guys gonna play your PlayStation 7 with PT on it?
Yeah.
Guys, it's time to let it go. You guys continue. How often are people still playing this demo? I understand it was good. The videos exist out there forever on YouTube and vice versa. I always thought the demo was interesting. I did not think it was like the best demo. If it was still on my PS4 playable, I would not be playing it right now. I played it one time and that was it. Before even the debacle, I was like, so it's interesting that Konami has to be so extra and going to cancel, make sure it doesn't run on PS5 and stuff like that. But like you said, it doesn't surprise me that they did that. They are sometimes so anti-consumer and things like that. But at the same time, it's kind of like they want to get past it, and I'm like, yeah, I think it's time we all get past it as well.
Yeah, Konami's known for making decisions where it kind of just makes you sit back and rack and it's like, why do you care so much? It's kind of like when they block Kojima from going to award shows. It's like, what is wrong with you? The things that they choose to get super hung up for. And it's like, how about ship a game that people actually like? How about that, Konami? You remember Metal Gear Survive? This is the company we're dealing with right now.
I played Metal Gear Survive. Remember, if you wanted to make a second character in Metal Gear Survive, you had to pay $10 extra.
I played it too. It was awful.
The game's terrible. The game's terrible.
Yeah, so it's I just felt like it would have been... They made this a bigger story than it needs to be. They don't support it. Don't update it. It is what it is. Listen, if you want to play it on next-gen hardware, you do what you want to do. But for them going all the way out of their way to... No, you cannot play this on future hardware. Even with a new game coming there, it's just people are going to play the new Silent Hill game. Are you really afraid that there's going to be sales lost because PT is playable? No, I don't need the new Silent Hills. I got this 7-minute demo where I can walk through the hallways multiple times. This'll get it done for me. Come on, guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the hype. And I love Silent Hills. I love
PT, but come on.
I enjoyed PT, but guys, if for whatever reason it was playable on PS5, I would not be going through the hoops that you need to do to get it on PS5. I don't want to play it. I don't want to play it.
True.
There's no reason to. Alright, going on to the next story. So, an interesting story, kind of a lot to kind of unpack here. So, Jabril, right now, we're recording on November 8th. We're at the dawn, the eve of the next gen, which is exciting times. It's super exciting times. And, both systems did have a big pre-order debacles and all that kind of... I like to say fun stuff, but it was terrible, super stressful. So people are hopefully, they're out there getting excited, hoping that they can get PlayStation 5s at launch. Sony has confirmed now. I'll read right into the article. So Sony has confirmed that PS5 launch day sales will be online only this year, meaning there will be no physical units available for purchase in stores on its launch day of November 12th, 2020. This was revealed on the PlayStation blog. Sony has made this decision in the interest of keeping our gamers, retailers, and staff safe amidst COVID-19 and confirmed that all day of launch sales will be conducted through the online stores of our retail partners. Sony asked the people, please don't plan on camping out or lining up outside of your local retailer on launch day in hopes of finding a PlayStation 5 console. Now, Jabril, you and I we were lucky enough to get our consoles pre-ordered online. Whether they ship to us on launch day or not, that's a different story. Whether it gets canceled last second, I don't think so, but that's a different story. This is an interesting story. I was very confused because you got to remember that not too long ago they were talking about having more PS5s available for launch than PS4s were available. I remember people a week or two after the PlayStation 4 launch being able to walk in and get, calling, you can be able to just go and pick one up. This is where they're going so far out to make sure it's almost getting people's hopes lower that people won't have their system, can't find launch systems if you didn't pre-order it, pretty much. And it's a little sad. It's a little saddening because if you want a PlayStation 5 and can afford a PlayStation 5 right now, I would love for everyone just to get one right now. We can all enjoy it together. But how are you reacting to this? Because it's such a weird story. I don't really like their reasoning that much. But how was your reaction to this late news that came in?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, COVID, this whole era, this whole pandemic, has normalized a lot of strange things in general. And so a brand new mainline PlayStation console launching with 0 physical location presence is nuts. And I feel like a lot of people are not realizing how nuts this is. And again, I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that this is a major deal that they're going completely online only. Again, places like GameStop have an online presence and stuff like that, so they're not getting cut out of the deal completely. But this is a major step in a direction that I feel like this is not going to be just an anomaly. I'm not going to be surprised if many launches go this direction going forward in general, because I just feel like the whole kiosk setup, getting allocations to each store process, if you can cut all that out and just be like, go to the online retailers, here's your allocation, Walmart, Amazon, whatever, GameStop, send them out, is probably easier on Sony's end. But yeah, no, that's wild that there's just going to be none in store. However, their kind of decision about basically we're not going to have any in physical locations because we want to de-incentivize people going there in person, I don't buy that personally.
Nope.
I wouldn't say they're lying, but I think this is more of an allocation issue. Getting enough consoles out there in a wild issue more than it is we want people to be safe during COVID issue. That's just my personal thing. I have no data to back that up. That's just, I don't necessarily buy that. Again, I just think that everybody's been supply constrained, specifically, especially considering the fact that so many of these parts come out of China specifically, and that one company who name is Foxconn or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Everything comes out of them. And so when China shut down for quite a while, and they're back up and running now from what I understand, that constrained everybody because, again, there's a new iPhone launching today. They're dealing with problems. Xbox launching, PlayStation's launching. Who knows what Google's using for, maybe they're building their 3 Stadia units out of that too. I don't know. But yeah, everybody's supply constrained.
Yeah.
And the idea that, oh no, we have a ton of consoles, we're just not going to put it out there. I feel like if they had the consoles to put out there, they would find a way to do that. Because again, social distancing and being safe and camping out responsibly and stuff like that, if they really wanted to, first off, that's a retail store problem. Second off, they have the actionable items. We've seen, 6 to 8 months of how to do this. This is not a new thing. The COVID epidemic's been around for quite a while. We know how it works. We know how to mitigate it the best you can in physical kind of locations and stuff like that. So they could do it if they wanted to. So again, I feel like if this was an option, they would take advantage of it. And I feel like they're like, okay, we're short. How do we market spend this? Oh yeah, we care about people. We're going to keep people safe. So that's just my projection. I could be incorrect, but that's the kind of way I read it.
Yeah, and you're not alone there. I stay off many game news and things, but a lot of people have been kind of the same feeling. They're like, well, they're definitely not doing that because not that they don't care if people get corona or get COVID, but they do, they have a probably big backlist of online orders that they won't be able to satisfy immediately. So I think it's bad publicity. I think it's bad, marketing that. Let's say you went through all this stress of pre-ordering it online. You didn't get yours on launch day. I was able to walk into Sam's Club, BJ's, or anything like that, walk it off, and just walk off with it, no stress. That just doesn't look well for you. That's a big blow. And I think trying to mitigate some of that stuff, they gotta satisfy those online pre-orders first. They have to take care of all those online orders first. I don't understand how other people, other like retail stores get their pre-order system. I only experienced GameStops where when we were getting a new system, we were limited. We're like, you guys can take 10 pre-orders, that's it. For the PlayStation 5, most stores that I spoke to, and some of the people that I know that still work there, they're like, yeah, we were given like 8, and that's it. And we were told not to expect any more by the end of the year. And I'm like, Sony doesn't want that, obviously. GameStop still, as much as a joke as it is, could be a good place to sell hardware. Giving them 8 units, and that's it for the end of the year, is kind of, it sucks. It does suck, but you have to understand that, yeah, it's probably way more of a supply constraint than it is trying to keep people safe from COVID. And, this is what they expect. I fully expect to probably see some in stores this year. They're telling you not to expect it, not to do it. I think their big thing is obviously launch day.
They gotta hit Black Friday. I don't buy it. They have to hit Black Friday.
Yeah, it's weird. I just got GameStop's daily ad or weekly ad, and the whole thing is just Xbox Series and PlayStation, and it's like has the prices and games and stuff like that. You gotta assume even more online deals will probably open up probably before you get some in stores, but some places just can't control it. Walmart, keep an eye out for these kind of places if you're really looking to get a system or to get to a different system, because they will appear. I think it's easier to tempt people down and be like, listen, don't expect it. And if people start finding them in the wild, people start not picking up pre-orders or whatever it may be. There's people who get double pre-orders, one in store, one not in store. It's a mixed bag. And this is obviously, they're not doing this to try to create artificial hype. It's not like the Wii situation.
Oh, yeah. No.
This is definitely that they just...
They would avoid this if they could.
Yeah. They don't want to not sell their system. People are demanding. People want their system. Why would you not want to... Why would you not want to give people your system that they want to pay you cash for? So it's obviously just all this other stuff. This year's just been a big hectic, moving.
Yeah, and it's just you have this really common kind of like scenario where like you're trying to tell me like in late November, right before when everybody starts their Christmas shopping, and you're gonna have all these families, all these parents flooding Best Buys, WalMarts, Targets, being like, "Oh, do you have the PlayStation 5 console? I want to buy it for my kid," and you're telling me you're gonna have nothing for them. Nothing. And again, they stressed launch day, so that's it. It better be pretty damn close then, because again, we're talking about 2 weeks after.
2 weeks. Yeah.
So if they're supply constrained, I don't really understand this. So is 2 weeks enough for you to get your quantity up? Maybe. What are the dangers that are gonna be avoided from not having them in launch day that will be not present when you launch it 2 weeks later in physical person? You know what I mean? Like, okay, we don't have PS5s for launch because we don't want to aid in people contracting COVID. All right. But when in 2 weeks, when we launch it in the stores during Black Friday, where people literally stampede into stores, that'll be okay. Or are you going to skip that too? Because if it's really about caring about people's health, you wouldn't launch this until a vaccine's out. Let's just keep it like for real. I mean, keeping it honest. So I don't necessarily... I feel like this is a little bit of marketing spin. A little bit.
Yeah, they're just trying to soften the blow, because you want to be able to retweet the other way around. Like, hey, we were able to manufacture, cut deals, more systems are available. Then you want that tweet instead of, hey guys, we oversold, you guys aren't all getting your PS5s. Like, that's the negative tweet. You want the positive tweet of more are available next week, tomorrow, whatever. You don't want to be the guys tweeting reverse, hey guys, my bad, you guys aren't getting your system. You don't want that right now.
Well, yeah, and ultimately, the place I want everybody to be in is pretty much the place where Sony wants everybody. That ultimately, in a relatively timely manner, hopefully by next year, but maybe in sometime in Q1 next year, everyone who wants a PS5 can get one. Ultimately, that's the position they want to be in. That's where I would like everybody in, because I don't like being in a scenario where like we're gonna have our consoles, but then everyone we know can't get one. That also sucks for like multiplayer too, because again, you want people to play with, and it's like if none of your friends are able to get one, that's kind of isolating too as well. So I'm hoping in a relatively timely manner they can figure this out and they can start getting them out there into the wild, because again, those physical locations, as much as I don't go into stores and buy consoles like that traditionally anymore, I know a lot of people who do, and so I hope they're able to rectify that in a timely manner.
Yeah, and they have to, and it's obviously what this whole situation was. It's kind of more delaying why they try to figure it out, because it's very true. You just have to, you want people to have your system, and that is the big part, especially in this day of social distancing still, what good is if I have a PlayStation with multiplayer games? I'm not inviting people over to play it. I just can't have just people come in off the street into my house. You know, it's just it's a different situation where online gaming is like at its greatest right now just because of the fact that people are staying separated. And it sucks, you know. Again, even though we don't have like crazy multiplayer games at launch, it'd be nice just to all kind of experience it together.
True. So I guess we can jump into the loose topic, and we're making crazy time today. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show than previous episodes, but that's obviously because, you know, we're coming up on next gen. Things are calming down. Everybody's ramping up, but everybody's kind of writing stories about a console we don't got. So there's only so much we could say about it.
It's all been reviews of controls, reviews of tons of stuff. So
the media remote, the camera, is Best Buy overheating their consoles?
Haven't even opened my camera. It's over there.
What are you gonna do with it? You know, is that for VR? Is that what that's for?
I was under the impression it was for VR, but they did come out, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, saying if you're playing VR backwards compatible on PlayStation 5, you can't use that camera. You have to use the old camera, which means you had to go to that PlayStation request camera adapter and put your information in, which I did, and was a headache.
All right, well, God bless them, I guess.
I'll let you guys know when I get my adapter.
Best of luck to you guys. I hope you figure that out. I guess so we can jump into the loose topic. I'm actually really excited about this one. This is a really fascinating topic. It's something that's been thrown around quite a bit. For anybody who pays attention to gaming, you've heard about the Nintendo bump. And I say that in quotes because it's a controversial idea to begin with. Some people think it's a thing. Some people really put it as a criticism towards Nintendo, towards IGN and people like them who've reviewed their games. Some people don't think it exists whatsoever. So basically, the idea of the Nintendo bump is that because I guess Nintendo has this real love from a good chunk of the game industry, people feel like they get a lot of slack that maybe other companies don't get. That maybe games are rated way higher, like maybe like a Zelda Breath of the Wild, that if it was released by Sony or Microsoft, it wouldn't nearly have as high of a score. So the bump in its review score. So it's a controversial idea. My personal thoughts, and then I guess I can ask you what you feel about it, is do I think the Nintendo bump exists? I think it can exist. I think it has existed. Do I think it exists across the board for every single game they release? Absolutely not. I think it's important to differentiate between a kind of indiscriminate bump in score and people just having a lot of love for a specific IP and that IP holding a different weight than others. So naturally, maybe a Mario game is just going to have that je ne sais quoi that maybe Sackboy don't got. You know what I mean? Like, It's just, there's a lot of decades invested into these IP. There's a certain Nintendo magic that they do, that Nintendo just has these intangibles that sometimes can make their games skew a little higher in review scores, and then other ones that you'd think that naturally are just as good won't get that score, because again, Nintendo has this certain way that they go about their platformers and their arcadey games and their multiplayer games that it's really hard to properly replicate. So again, the Nintendo bump, I think, is generally speaking an overstated thing. Personally, that's what I think. Is that I think people think it affects scores a lot more than it actually does. I think there's certain times that Nintendo's put out a relatively kind of the same platformer that's gotten way higher scores. Especially specifically, and again, I love this franchise, but I feel like Kirby gets this. If any IP gets it, I feel like Kirby gets it. I love Kirby. I think it's fun. I think it's cute. I love the imagery of it. Really solid games from there. So, some of my favorite, the N64 one, the Crystal Shards or whatever it's called. I love that game.
Yeah.
But it's generally speaking a pretty mid platformer game. But it gets some pretty solid scores. It gets pretty consistent, sometimes 7s, mostly 8s. And I think it's breached into 9 before. If another company made Kirby, would it be scoring that hard? Not a chance in hell does it score that high. But there's something about that Nintendo magic and what Kirby means to the industry where I feel like people give it a lot more slack than maybe others. But this idea that like Breath of the Wild, for example, is nowhere close as good as Horizon and it would be a 6 by... I just don't buy that at all. I think, generally speaking, the high scores that Nintendo gets, they've earned. But what is your feeling about this?
So yeah, and we've just the Nintendo bump in reviews. I'm very much in agreement where it's something that does go into effect in and out, and the Kirby series is an amazing example where I want to say there's like 7 Kirby games that they're the exact same game. Absolutely. Sometimes with a gimmick, but you're talking down to the soundtrack, down to the level design, down to just think about how many times you guys fought. What's the tree? Wispy Woods, Willy Woods, whatever. Yeah. He's
the exact same fight too.
He's pretty much the first boss and the exact same boss in, I want to say, like almost 10 Kirby games. I don't know how many Kirby games are out, but every Kirby game that I've played, and I've played most of them. I think there's that robot one on 3DS I didn't play, but most of them. So you start off in the woods, and the first boss is the tree. So it's definitely there, but those games get rated pretty high. And my favorite one is Nightmare in Dreamland, I think is what it's called, which is the remake and all that stuff on GBA. But most of those levels have been recreated in the newest one, which was Star Allies. So it's but those games get reviewed very well when they're really kind of the same, and it's a mixture. It is something that does go into effect, and I do think. Now, I think I've discussed this before, where I love Breath of the Wild. I think it was a great game. I do not think it was a 10 out of 10. I believe that's where most people rated it. The game has no dungeons. The shrines doesn't make sense. It's kind of lackluster to me, and there's no real story in it, which is why you have to make, you had to make a whole spin-off just to give us the story we wanted. At all, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I just think it's a really good game. It's not a masterpiece, which is what most people understand a 10 out of 10 game to be.
Yeah.
And Zelda is one that almost everything Zelda always gets a big bump. A big, almost like a nostalgic thing. It's like, I love this franchise so much that I couldn't do it. The only other game that, a big series that, and I think most people are in agreements is, Pokemon, which I know is, it's practically a first party Nintendo game. It's
an exclusive. It's, I guess, technically Game Freak is not.
It's technically a second, but it's tricky. But Pokemon games are Nintendo's, and those games, we've been playing them forever, and for most of the stuff, we're finally getting some a little bit of changes and stuff. Most of the stories the same. The formula is the same. The starters you start with are the exact same. Fire, water, and grass type, and so it's like those games continually get rated very high, and there's even down to spin-offs, which like I'll see some of these spin-offs and I'll be like, this is dumb. What do you mean? Like, I wake up as a Pokemon and you want me to spin my stylus around my DS to attack? Like, that's not fun, but the game's still getting rated 8, 9s, Game of the Year discussions. I'm like, guys, if it wasn't the fact that this was Pokemon, you guys wouldn't be talking about it that way. And I haven't spent a lot of time with, like, what's that Pokemon game? Temtem?
Oh, yeah.
Pokemon.
Yeah,
that game is doing a lot of things better than what Pokemon is.
Definitely.
And people are very critical on it. Oh, it doesn't look as good. I'm like, really? It looks fine. It looks fine to me. It looks like a Nintendo game. It looks like you guys are just upset.
You can't be talking about Pokemon and talking about how a game looks. Come on now.
Yeah, go play those 3DS Pokemon games and tell me you guys thought those were good.
Play Sword and Shield. I love those games. Come on now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the quality's there, sure, but it's the same game, and those are the games that are getting this slight bump. And I do understand that it does happen. I also think it's partially in the reviewers that are giving it. Obviously, we're not getting into specific people, but there's like certain people, if you give them a Zelda game, no matter what it is, they're gonna praise it to the highest it can be. And the same goes with Pokemon, and the same goes with that. So that's where it does exist, where people think Nintendo game and it automatically thinks it's a bump, and it works both ways. Why do you think Nintendo's go buy Breath of the Wild, which at this point is 4 years old now? The game's $60.
Yeah.
Go get The Last of Us, and you probably can get The Last of Us for like $30. And I know different.
Shouldn't that go on sale for
$9.99? Different game, all that kind of stuff. But I get it, but it's because people hold that praise there. It's because people think, oh, this game's a 10 out of 10. I'm like, yeah, Breath of the Wild is great. At launch, it definitely deserved to be whatever it was, 50, 60. But 4 years later, we're about to get a prequel to it. There's a sequel in the works, and you're telling me I still have to pay full price for it. So it's like those minor things that really show that Nintendo does have this sort of bump and fog that people just don't want to knock it down. They're afraid of Nintendo for some reason. And, we've seen this happen over and over. So I'm in complete agreement with you where it exists. It does exist. There are a few reviewers that consistently have their nostalgia glasses on, or I don't know what it is, that they will not want to say anything bad about a Nintendo game. But it is something that activates and deactivates. The newest Paper Mario, which actually, like I said, I was just playing, was reviewed fine. In a normal world with that bump, people would be talking about that game 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly.
And most reviews were like, cool, 7, 8. And that's not a bad score. That's a good game.
That's fair, yeah.
And I actually kind of agree with that. I would say 7 out of 10 is about where that game is to me. No, the bump wasn't in effect during that time and stuff like that. So it's, not in effect, but you guys know what I mean. It's just some people just have that affinity. You give that game to someone else and they're going to tell you it's a 9 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10. Where it really isn't. And we have to accept that.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about the Nintendo bump and how, like, I feel like maybe some of their franchises may get a lot of praise where we've seen examples of other companies doing a very similar thing and that just not being received the same way. And again, I like both of these games, but what would Star Fox be if it wasn't made by Nintendo? You want to know what it is? Panzer Dragoon. And look at the reviews difference. And that's what I mean. Is just like if Star Fox was made by like Microsoft with different IPs and stuff like that, the reviews aren't coming nowhere near that. Like, I mean, like, some of those games are borderline unplayable, but like, and again, I respect the hell out of them and I understand they're classic and something like that. But I think it's important. People need to check like their bias sometimes for Nintendo. And again, this has come from somebody who I love Nintendo games, but I think there's also something to be said about the timelessness of Nintendo games, where sometimes their scores in the time may seem a little bit much, but then 20 years pass and people are still talking about that game, and you have to take into effect that that's worth something as well. Where, like, how many games from the N64, PS1 generations are people talking about like they do with Mario 64? Like, how many? Not many. How many, if you make a top 10 of the best platformers of all time, how many of them are Nintendo games? Correct. Like, it's so... In the time, you might be like, oh, great, another 16-bit platformer. Oh, great, another 3D open-world platformer. Okay, whatever. And then in 20 years, none of their competition is being mentioned. And it makes that 9 out of 10, that 10 out of 10 make a lot more sense. And I feel like if there was one thing Nintendo can do better than pretty much anybody, it's that timelessness thing. It's that they're able to make games that stand the test of time much better than anyone else is literally able to do. Because again, there's like amazing classic games that people loved during the PS3 generation that no one talks about now. And then there's games that Nintendo literally released in 1986 that people go back to on a yearly basis to this day. Not take out nostalgia, take out anything you want. There's no story, there's nothing, just raw gameplay that stands on its own. And I think that's worth consideration as well, which is why that quote-unquote bump might exist, is because they're maybe looking at factors beyond what it means to the modern landscape. It's basically like, I don't have any doubt that in 15 years people will be going back to Odyssey. I don't doubt that. And that's not something I can say about almost any other game that came out this year. Because again, I love Horizon. I love Uncharted. Do I think people are going to care that much about it in 20 years? Not really. Because I think iterations of those games and higher quality will exist in the future. And I can't not necessarily say that because, again, Nintendo does a very kind of off-kilter thing. They're not tech demos. They're not narrative wonders. They're gameplay. And gameplay, a lot of people say, Colin included, gameplay is king. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. And quality gameplay stands the test of time. Stories, visual fidelity, crazy tech is... ambiguous. It changes, it evolves, and the way people like it in one era may not translate the best to going forward. So that can also explain the bump a little bit, at least to me, is that I feel like Nintendo plays almost a deeper game where they're trying to play towards the consumer in 3 generations, where a lot of people like hyper focus on now. And when you hyper focus on now, Nintendo games can seem very unimaginative, not really doing too much that would never say, oh great, another kid's game. But then next thing you know, you're a grown person, started your own family, and your kids are playing games from your childhood and they genuinely like it. And could you do that with any other company? Not really. So I think that's worth consideration.
Yeah, that does. That makes a lot of sense as well.
So that was the show, guys. Speaking of a bump, though, you know who's not going to get a bump when their thing comes out? It's probably the Atari VCS, who are definitely going to get the scores that they deserve. God bless them. God bless all the people who actually bought that console. We have you in our prayers. This was the NeoVintage podcast. I am Jabril, and I am with
Steve. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Until next time, we'll see you guys. Bye.
Take care.